Well, guys, I like to think I watch space stocks as closely as anyone, and yeah, Teddy just came in the background. Hi, Teddy. But today was quite a wild day, and it really caught me off guard. So what actually happened yesterday? Of course, we're all aware of Donald Trump's inauguration as president, but there was a key sentence in his speech that I think is what really set off this move in all these space stocks today. Let's take a listen to that.
And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
So you'd think investors would have been expecting this given Trump's previous comments on Starship and SpaceX and going to space and his friendship with Elon Musk. But I think we do have some footage of investors today at the market open trying to buy space stocks. Let's take a look. Okay, obviously I jest a little bit, but it was absolutely wild stuff. We had some massive moves, not to mention some big news out of Redwire and a few other companies as well. Let's chat about that today. Before we dive into that though, if you're new here, I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button by the end of the video. And if you're not new here, well, those likes and comments always help out so much as well. So thank you for that. Let's talk about the crazy day for space stocks. Rocket Lab went wild throughout the day. I have to admit, when we hit like 28, I thought we were going to be flat from then on out, but no, there was another leg up. By 11 a.m., we were past $31 per share, which pushes Rocket Lab all the way to a market cap of $14.03 billion. Really outstanding performance in Rocket Lab over the past few years. If you zoom out, just went absolutely parabolic here. I think a lot of this is just investors trying to look for what they could buy in the space industry, given the bullish comments by Donald Trump on space and the feeling that there's going to be a lot more investment in that area. Obviously, people can't buy SpaceX stock with any ease because it's privately traded. So the next best thing is Rocket Lab. Makes a lot of sense to me why this one would move up. But yeah, I really didn't see this coming whatsoever and was caught off guard. But luckily, you know, I've bought and held a good company, so it's just an added bonus. For curiosity's sake, I wanted to see if Rocket Lab's share price has ever closed higher than we've closed today, which was at about $31.27. So just looking through the history as we go back, we do have some mid-20s, 27 here. Do we have a 31 plus? This is in real time, by the way, guys. I've had no time today, unfortunately. Really wanted to make a video, but haven't had as much time to research and prepare as I want. But looks like this is the highest close ever for Rocket Lab, if I am not mistaken. Do let me know if I missed something down in the comments below, but from what I'm seeing, close 31.27, highest ever. Now, next up, we had Redwire Space with another big move today. This one actually even bigger than Rocket Lab on a percentage basis. The company is up a whopping 51%. Now, this all is probably not related to the inauguration speech and investors looking for space stocks they can invest in, because Redwire actually announced a massive acquisition, or I'd consider it even more of like a merger because it's quite a large company for them to digest. More on that later, but yeah, Redwire with an even bigger outperformance than Rocket Lab, which you wouldn't expect just from comments on going to Mars, because yes, Redwire has technology in all sorts of landers and satellites and you know, different projects, but you would generally think Rocket Lab would be more of the pure space play. Planet Labs, another one that has me shaking my head a little bit. Now, good for Planet. It's had a rough time and it closed up 22%. But I don't really see how increased investment in, you know, going to Mars and beyond, or the moon, or stuff like that really helps Planet. They're more of an Earth observation play. So they have their satellites looking at the Earth every day and You can log into their systems, see the changes, see what's going on the planet. It has a lot of use for government, military, as well as agriculture, and they can do some pretty advanced things like see the moisture in soil and track carbon emissions and methane emissions to see how countries are doing on their climate change goals, things like that. I wouldn't really think that's too much of a priority for this current administration, at least on the climate change front. So a little bit surprising that we see this move in Planet. Maybe it's just being carried up by the rest of the space stocks. Let me know what you think about that. Or perhaps people are just buying anything space with not really doing their full research. Intuitive Machines, likewise, had about a 23% gain. A lot of people were worried about this incoming administration shifting the focus to Mars because Intuitive Machines is all about the moon. Their second lunar lander for NASA scheduled to launch in a matter of weeks. Their first one was semi-successful. They have a few more lunar missions planned. They're hoping to get the contract to build the lunar terrain vehicle for NASA astronauts to drive around on the moon. And it's been under pressure lately, actually, because a lot of people have worried that Trump and Musk will pivot towards Mars, Musk being much bigger on Mars than the moon, and he's said that publicly several times. But Intuitive Machines was not hurt by today's talk of Mars and not the moon. It was carried just as much as some of these other space companies. So that was an interesting one as well. I didn't expect. I do still have my shares in Intuitive Machines, so nice little bump for the company there as it now has pushed past all-time highs as well. It's another one I was kind of thinking of trimming my position on as I do raise some funds for my house that I'm looking to buy soon. One that's getting no love today, unfortunately, and a company I do like is MDA Space. Now, this is a Canadian-based space company. It might be why it's not getting as much attention, but they do a ton of work with American companies, and I really don't see why it should be left out. They're working with Rocket Lab. They're working with all sorts of companies building next-gen satellite platforms, so a little bit of a head scratcher that if all space companies are rising, MDA, which is one of the safer plays that's actually already profitable and now has a much lower market cap than, say, a Rocket Lab, probably making more money right now, although not growing as fast, didn't really have any sort of a change today at all. So this massive deal that is absolutely going to transform Redwire, I did just want to take a quick look at because it's incredibly impactful to the company, not a small acquisition by any means. And it's expected to be immediately accretive to revenue, adjusted EBITDA, and free cash flow, which is very important for them, especially that free cash flow metric, meaning that they're acquiring a company that is already EBITDA and free cash flow positive. So Redwire will acquire Edge Autonomy for $952 million on a debt-free, free cash flow basis and subject to customary working capital, blah, blah, blah. The merger is expected to be paid using $150 million in cash and $775 million in shares of Redwire common stock. Now, if you look at Redwire's stock, the market cap is only $1.4-ish billion, and that may have been even after the 50% move today. And unfortunately for Redwire shareholders, I guess you might say, the price that they are going to give the shareholders of this other company, Edge Autonomy, is $15.07, where Redwire closed today up big, $22. And that's because that is the 30-day volume weighted average trading price for Redwire shares. So what this acquisition is going to do is bring Redwire into the autonomous drone and defense business, where previously they were only in aerospace. I have to say I did kind of like Redwire being a pure play space company. I do have some shares of them myself. Was kind of thinking of adding more down the line, but now I've got to rethink everything about this and do a lot more research because this company is basically now half of Redwire, really. So they're also now guiding for 2025 that the combined company is forecast that the combined company will make revenues of $535 to $605 million and adjusted EBITDA of $70 to $105 million with a positive free cash flow. If we look at Redwire right now and check out their trailing 12 months of financials, they have about $300 million in revenues. So potentially jumping all the way to $535 to $605 million, the top end, that would be a double of their revenue over the trailing 12 months. And as well, their adjusted EBITDA, I believe right now is kind of just barely break even. So this new company does appear to be more profitable than the core Redwire business, at least right now. Profitability for Redwire has been improving as they scale. The other thing to keep in mind with Redwire is they don't actually have $100 million in cash on the balance sheet right now to pay that $150 million that they are saying they're going to pay. So that means we're going to be looking at more debt or more dilution on top of the shares that are going to go to shareholders of this company they are acquiring. As of the end of Q3 2024, which is the most recent quarterly earnings results we have, they only had about $43 million in the bank. My initial thoughts on this are that, well, I was a little skeptical at first, but I think it can make sense. The autonomous drone and defense space is probably going to boom. We've seen China make a lot of progress on these autonomous drone swarms, and they're seeing a lot of use in Ukraine with Russia. So clearly, this is a bit of a technology of the future that the US, I think, has been lagging behind a little bit. I think we've seen Anduril focus on it as well, too. So hopefully Redwire can attack that growing market as well as their space market. I believe the backers of this other company were also the backers of Redwire who brought them public. So there could be a little bit of incentive there for the ownership of this other company to want to combine with Redwire and, see a return on their investment as it comes public being a part of Redwire. The one thing with Redwire, though, and I've said this many times, and it remains now, I think, even more true than ever, is I don't always see the synergies between their various technologies, right? So when I look at Rocket Lab and I see that they're building a rocket and building all these satellite components and then moving up the chain to build their own satellites, I can see logically why it makes a ton of sense that having a rocket and building your own satellites will give you an advantage over having just one or the other. Now, that's synergies. Now, with Redwire, they have all sorts of a mishmash of different space technologies and things that are actually really cool and pretty impressive, whether it's the space pharmaceuticals, making these crystals that can be used for medicines in space in zero-G, advanced solar panels that have been used on the ISS, and all sorts of different infrastructure pieces in space. I think they also have some hardware on Firefly's Blue Ghost mission that's on its way to the moon right now. But I just don't see how the different pieces combine to make the whole more valuable than the sum of the parts. And that goes especially for this new acquisition, because the drone stuff, while it's cool, I see as pretty much completely separate and not a lot of shared technology with the space stuff. Now, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but does having a good drone really improve their space business in any way? Does being able to make really nice solar panels help for the drone business? I don't see it. So to me, yeah, they've just got all this mishmash of different technologies that come under one umbrella, which are nice. And obviously, if their revenues are good, then so be it. But I just don't see the grand vision for the company like I do with Redwire, and that's made me a little bit more hesitant. However, it has been trading a little bit cheaper. Actually, I should say really a lot cheaper than Rocket Lab when you look at price to sales and some of those other metrics, and still growing very rapidly. So that is something else to keep in mind with Redwire. Now, like a lot of space stocks, Redwire has had a good year, even if you don't take into account this big move today. They've been up at around $17 per share, whereas historically, if you zoom out 5 years, they were sitting at, below $2 at times. So I think they are trying to take advantage of the high valuation they're being given right now and convert that into valuable assets they can use down the line. It makes sense to me, but the other side of it is if you really think your stock should be worth more than what you're valued at today, then surely you wouldn't be quite as aggressive on diluting your shareholders, especially if there isn't a huge synergy between this other company you're acquiring and your core business. So I'd be really curious to hear what you guys think of this Redwire acquisition. Are you interested in buying more shares now? Are you more bullish on the company, less bullish on the company, or the same? Let me know down in the comments below. Overall, though, it does seem like they at least got a decent price for edge autonomy. So those are some thoughts about the news today and the massive moves we had in the space industry and space stocks. I have to say it's been one of the best days ever for my portfolio personally, and that's in spite of the fact that my number 2 position, Tesla, was actually down on the day. So that just goes to show how much Rocket Lab moving and some of these other companies moving did a lot of heavy lifting there for the portfolio. Were you guys expecting after Inauguration Day that space stocks would get this massive move? Personally, I thought it had already been priced in when Trump got elected because there was a big move up in their stocks around that time, but always interested to hear your thoughts down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy it and you're new here, I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button by the end of the video. If you're not new here, thank you so much for sticking around. You're the best, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.